What's the best method for paying off debt? From someone who had to get themselves out of £50,000 worth of debt. We'll talk specifically about the snowball and the avalanche methods. We'll run through the pros and cons of each to help you decide which is best suited to your situation. The snowball method is where you pay off the smallest amounts first, and the avalanche method is where you pay off the highest interest ones first. So let's start with the snowball method. So this is where you're going to rank all of your debts by this size. You're then going to pay off the smallest amounts first. So this is all about building some momentum, getting those small victories by paying off those smallest amounts first. This is all about the psychology of being in debt. I think that part is really underplayed. And while it might not be the best method on paper, we can't underplay that feeling of being in debt and not feeling like you're getting anywhere. So by paying off the smallest debts first, it means that you're reducing the number of different debts that you have, if you have multiple ones, of course. It's also the most simple and straightforward because you don't have to worry about different interest rates on different debts. You simply just look at the different debts you have, look at the sizes of them, and then you just pay off the smallest first. Building up a good habit when paying off debt is so important. If you pay off a good amount one month, but then it takes you another couple of months before you can pay it off again, that's going to affect your momentum. It's going to slow you down. It's going to give you a negative feedback loop, and it's going to affect you mentally. So by simplifying it and literally just looking at the amounts of debts that you have and paying off the smallest first, you're going to build a positive feedback loop, and you're going to build momentum, which is so important in the long run. Now, the downside of this is that on paper, it isn't the quickest way to pay off the debt because you're ignoring the interest rates that you have. So if you have an interest rate of 10% or an interest rate of 30%, you're ignoring that. So that's going to mean in the long run, you're going to end up paying more interest over the course of the loans that you have. And that leads us on to the pros of the avalanche method. So the avalanche method is where you're going to take all of your debt and you're going to rank it by the interest rate that is on it. And this is where you're going to start with the highest interest rate first. And on paper, like I said, this is going to be the quickest way to pay off that debt because you're targeting the most expensive debt essentially. And by targeting that debt which has the highest interest rate, you're going to pay it off quicker. So over the long run, you're going to pay the least amount of interest. This method will feel slower to get started, but the reason it's called the avalanche method is because it really does pick up and it will pick up exponentially. So by focusing on the most expensive debt first, it's going to mean you've got more money to then focus on the cheaper debt later down the line. The downside to this method is that it is a little bit more complex to calculate. So you've got to go in and look specifically at each debt, look at what the interest rate is, and you've got to rank it. So there's a little bit more calculation there. From a psychological standpoint, like we've touched on, it is going to be slower to start with. So if that's something that you're worried about and you know that you need to get momentum, then maybe you can lean more towards the snowball method. The key underpinning on both of these methods though, is tracking what you have. Without knowing what debts you have, you can't even start to think about a strategy or the best method to pay it off. My advice would be to get it into a spreadsheet. What gets measured gets improved. You can create your own however you want, or you can take a look at mine. I'll leave a link in the description to my budgeting spreadsheet. This will allow you to plan out all of your income, all of your debt, investments, savings, whatever you want to use it for. You can use it for all of those, or you can specifically use it just for paying off debt. I can't stress this enough. Whether you use mine or whether you create your own, it doesn't matter. But the main thing is that you get it noted down. Once you've done that, that's the first step. Then you can start talking about which is the best method for you. You could also have a balanced approach as well. It doesn't necessarily need to be all one or all of the other. So you could still rank them. You could rank them both ways, right? So in your spreadsheet, you can look at all of your debts. First of all, see what the interest rates are. Is there much difference between them? You know, if your lowest interest rate is 20% and your highest is 25%, then that's not really much of a difference. So the avalanche method isn't going to have a massive benefit over the snowball method in that instance. But obviously, if you've got a 20% swing, then that's where the avalanche method is going to make a much bigger difference. And you could still split it. So if you have an amount that you can afford to pay off each month, you could put 50% towards some high interest rate debt and then 50% towards the smallest amount of debt. So you still feel like you're getting some momentum, but you're also paying off the most expensive debt first as well. I'll say it again. What gets measured gets improved. Thanks for watching, guys. I will catch you tomorrow.